As a Hong Kong expat, the first order of business when returning home has always been the same: visiting relatives, but especially the grandparents, whichever that's still living. I grew up in a middle-class family. My mother's family lived in Hong Kong before the war, and my father's family escaped the communists at this point. Even though we all lived in the US, I have not seen my parents for a year, and the relatives here for half a decade. The day after we landed, we set out to do the visit. Only my grandmothers were still living. This is my father. We woke up before dawn to catch breakfast in the small village of Saudi in the New Territories. Our first stop was 2 hours of van, bus and train ride away. We decided to walk into town and chatted along the way. My father spent most of his early adulthood working as a social worker, and eventually ended up managing a privatized senior nursing home, which is where I spent most of my childhood growing up. My father here has high cholesterol, but he still craves McDonald's filet-o-fish now and then. He is quite fond of his senior citizen discount card, which entitles him to all kinds of food benefits, aside from other cash stuff. At the time, there was a lot of chatter about universal healthcare being considered in the United States. So I began to question him on his experience with socialized medicine. My father said 3 weeks prior to coming back to Hong Kong, he had contracted some sort of viral infection in his nose and was taking some antibiotics. He had been arranged to meet with a doctor in Hong Kong who recommended him to a specialist. The doctor had told my father that he had made a priority order for him at the least busy hospital that's closest to him. So he called the hospital to inquire about the date of his appointment with the specialist. A nurse then told him his appointment is scheduled for sometime in 2014. This was 2011. So my father decided to head back to the US for treatment. Here we are. This is where I grew up. A senior nursing home in Kowloon Tong. Several of these turtles were very little when I put them there. I wondered if they remembered me. Grandmother was 106 then. She was the bionic grandmother. Even after a hip replacement, she roams freely without help from other people. She can eat all on her own, and she is quite fond of candy and Coca-Cola. Since I can't understand my grandmother's dialect, some sort of Hakka, nor was I ever close to her, our time spent together was consisted of mostly blank stare and a forced smile on my part. This is her dorm, look mostly like hospice. There is a hint of bleach. Every now and then a yelp of pain can be heard down the hallway, presumably from those terminally ill. I feel the tradition of love and respect for the family unit will erode quickly with my generation. Later that afternoon we headed to Hong Kong Island to meet up with my mother in order to see grandmother from my mother's side. My mother insisted that I be photographed with grandmother, something I have a great disdain for. I often thought, ever since I was a very young kid, why am I treating this human being like his attraction? She was quite ill and tired, so our visit was short. She was 96.
咁我哋而家去食飯先嚇，我哋遲啲先再嚟睇你，好嗎？去
But that is too of the quiet reality of aging in this city, in this world. You get put in a strange place, surrounded by strange people. Then your long-forgotten family member comes by on a long-forgotten holiday, with some strange children. They wave at you. They hold your hand. Then before you know it, they leave. And you might be left to wonder, why am I still living?